Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today I want to talk about Ana Kasparian making it official and deciding to leave the left with this Substack article. I want to talk about why this is significant, but also why when you read this article, when you actually listen to what she said on that Jillian Michaels podcast, you realize that she has not actually shifted so dramatically from where she was and where we've talked about that she was prior to this, because I think people get a little bit of crazy. I think people tend to say, oh, she's going full Dave Rubin, she's completely on the right-wing side, she's gonna put on the MAGA hat tomorrow. But if you actually listen to the person that you're talking about, rather than try to project out or just say they've taken the red pill, you realize that there's much more nuance in this particular situation, and that's what I want to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
And remind you that Wednesday, October 23rd, I will be live in person in the city of New York debating Joshua Eagle, who is going to try to make the argument that libertarians should vote for Kamala Harris, and it's going to be an absolutely amazing event. Please register for this event if you're in and around the area. I believe it is in fact free. There's an open bar afterwards. I'd love to meet and greet with all of you. I know you're in the area, so let's just get this done. Now, without further ado, let's get into the topic of today's video. So on September 30th of this year, Ana dropped a Substack article that said independent and unaligned, with the subheadline that said, "You're right, I've changed." And in this article, she begins to explain the reasoning for why she no longer wants to identify as somebody who is distinctly and uniquely on the left, or more specifically with the Democrats or with the online left, because that seems to be the people that she has the most issue with. Now, we've talked about this on this channel before, how Ana has broken away on important issues like criminality and all of that, but for some reason people are pretending like this is completely new information, even though almost everything she said she's been saying for the past couple of years. This is just the official notice put on the bulletin board so you dumb idiots can understand where she's actually at. Now it reads as follows: after Trump came onto the political scene, and especially after he was elected in 2016, the us versus them mentality immediately took shape. Anyone who refused to, quote, resist Trump was seen as a threat to the country, and I was fully on board with that mindset. It all felt self-righteous at first, but eventually the tactics deployed to fight Trump became repetitive, boring, and ultimately fruitless. Polling shows that he has actually increased his support among Black and Latino voters, despite wall-to-wall coverage on his unsavory, racist, or bigoted remarks. Several years of media raising alarm over Trump's threat to democracy has only resulted in a tight presidential race between him and Kamala Harris. So the reason I think it's important to actually read Ana's own words is for you guys to understand that despite the clickbaity headlines about how she's taken the red pill, about how she's gonna put on the MAGA hat, nothing could be further from the truth. Ana has made it clear on her show, even recently, that she is not in favor of the evil orange man winning his presidential election. But one of the issues that she appears to run into with her audience is the fact that she does not want to cultishly get on board with the Kamala camp, because in reality, she's not a very good candidate. And like I said in a previous video, Ana actually has beliefs. She actually does want some progressive left policies to actually be implemented. And in her opinion, if you're just voting for somebody because they're not Donald Trump, you're never actually going to get a good candidate.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to our social break. I just missed the comment that I really wanted to. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is from Old New Jersey Man, and I'm gonna dispel this because I think you guys are missing it. So I love how we all buy into this. Kamala Harris must be more detailed and specific about every single issue, but Donald Trump doesn't have to make a single coherent point ever. I think you're wrong about that. When Donald Trump, I think Democrats are overthinking it. I think we're all overthinking it, okay? Donald Trump just flat out says things like, no tax on tips. That's so specific.
And you could see her actually struggling with her audience in clips like that, where she's explaining the issues that the Kamala campaign has, but rather than people in her audience taking that criticism, they then push back and say, but evil orange man, which is the standard go-to response from the Kamala bots on the internet.com, but completely misses the point. The reason why Kamala Harris needs to make her positions clear, needs to do media and all that, is because the American people, and undecided voters, to be more specific, are saying that they need to know more about her before they decide whether or not they're going to vote for her.
So politically, he just puts out simple things. No tax on tips. No tax on overtime. In fact, the no tax on tips sounded so good, politically speaking, that Kamala Harris piggybacked off of it. So there is specific stuff that he's saying and doing. And just because we hate him doesn't mean that we should shut our eyes to what he's doing right. And that's the thing that's so frustrating, because Democrats can't see it. You don't have to overthink it. Learn from what he's doing right, okay? Expand on that. And don't let him take the position of I'm better for working class Americans, because that's what's happening right now. You don't have to take my word for it. You can see it in the numbers.
So when Ana talks about leaving the cult-like opposition to Trump, leaving the left in that regard, this is what she's speaking to. It's not her changing all of her political positions, although some positions have notably changed. It's the fact that she realized that this cult-like devotion to the Democrats is a losing strategy. Now, some people will counter and say, hey, look, the evil orange man ended up losing in 2020. But again, that was an incredibly close election. It involved a global pandemic, and absent that, based on the economy and based on a bunch of other various factors, there's no reason to believe that the evil orange man wouldn't be president of the United States right now. Ana says, I can't help but acknowledge that the only thing that was accomplished by resisting Trump was less understanding and more division among Americans. I personally became reluctant to challenge my quote side or engage with voters that disagreed with me. In turn, I became less knowledgeable about people and the world around me. I saw Republican voters as an evil monolith, and that was a mistake. Look, this is undoubtedly true. There are clips of Ana Kasparian saying things that are absolutely horrible about people who voted for the evil orange man, people who voted specifically for Trump, women who voted for Trump, and this is what Ana has been working to repair, working to apologize for, and I give her credit for that, because one of the hardest things to do is to just say you were flat out wrong about something, and Ana has actually been doing that. I mean, again, she did the Kyle Rittenhouse retraction, which, by the way, is actually one of my least favorite retractions from Ana Kasparian. Go watch that video to find out why. But she also did a retraction on the Rebecca Jones story out of Florida, this supposed whistleblower who turned out to be scamming left-wing donors, and a bunch of other stories that she has decided on her own to take accountability for, even though Ana really didn't have to do that, and honestly, her audience regrets the fact or doesn't like the fact that she does that. These videos do not do well all of the time for the Young Turks. The idea that she's grifting for the money should be kind of suspicious to people, because she's not making more money based on her changing her positions. In fact, people like me who do response videos where I support her changing ends up getting more views than the original video for the company, and Ana has actually spoken about how she doesn't want to hurt the company because she is loyal to Cenk, and she realizes that the audience that she helped cultivate is not ready to hear an alternative message. This is not a situation where I say something that's disagreeable to you guys out there in the audience, and sure, we have some people saying unsubscribe, I hate you, and all that, but for the most part, people say, all right, we can agree to disagree on this. For the left, and for this cult-like version of the left, every single leftist edict is a religious edict, so Ana straying away makes her a blasphemer, and that ends up costing TYT a lot. Now, Ana says, my evolution started in 2022 when I was sexually assaulted by a homeless man in my neighborhood as I was walking my dog. That horrible experience alone didn't change me politically, but the treatment I received from the far left and some progressives after sharing the story did. I was told that by publicly sharing what happened to me, I was stigmatizing my unhoused neighbors. Others accused me of feeding into racist stereotypes because they assumed that my attacker was black, but I had never disclosed the man's race. He was white. Not only did I suddenly see the flawed thinking of some on the left, I also witnessed their cruelty and hypocrisy in real time. These terrible traits that I had associated solely with my political opponents were obviously not exclusive to their tribe. I was stupid for ever thinking that was the case.
Tell me about your moment of when they went after you the first time.
Yeah, so it was so weird because it was unexpected, like super unexpected. In 2022, it was around March, I was walking my dog. It was not quite dark yet, but the sun was setting. As I'm walking my dog, I see these two guys that were
they were just kind of like moving around weirdly. You know, they seemed kind of manic and their clothes were tattered. So I knew that they were probably homeless. And I also knew that they're probably on something just based on like the twitchy way they were acting. But living in LA, I mean, there's homeless people everywhere, right? So I've never had problems. I didn't think anything of it. But as I was bending down to pick up my dog's mess, one of the guys like grabs me by my hips and he had an erection and just starts like humping me. And I didn't know what to do. Like I was terrified. I didn't have a weapon on me. Like I had no way of defending myself. I didn't know how far it was going to go because it's two guys. I'm by myself with my little dog. It was one of the most terrifying things ever because I'm pretty good at defending myself. In that moment, I just knew there was no option.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And luckily, he stopped and they just laughed at me and walked away as they were laughing at me. And so there was the fear and then the humiliation and weirdly shame. Like I felt ashamed for some reason. And it was awful. And it was really taking a toll on my mental health because I have to walk my dog, right? So at least 2 or 3 times a day, I'm going outside kind of scared. And so I opened up about this on the show.
Now look, we've gone over what happened to Ana in her own neighborhood while she was walking her dog repeatedly, and obviously something traumatic like that could be the tipping point or the catalyzing factor that could lead to you changing your beliefs. But more importantly, it was the reaction that she got, and by the way, still continues to get post her revealing the story, that people were more concerned about the perception of homeless people rather than Ana's own health and safety, rather than the fear that she has to go through as somebody who is a dog owner who has to walk her dog in her own neighborhood at least once or twice a day. And this is something that she spoke to on the Jillian Michaels podcast.
And so I opened up about this on the show, not really thinking much of it. And before I knew it, I'm starting to get these messages and it's like, really, really harsh stuff. And it's about how you are painting a picture of the homeless community. You know, how could you be like this? You know, these are your unhoused neighbors and they need help. A few people accused me of being racist when I had never disclosed the race of the individuals who did this to me. And in fact, they were white. And so like when they started accusing me of being racist, I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you assuming that the people who did this?
Of course.
Yeah, like, I think you might have a problem here.
Exactly.
Now look, it is no secret for long-term viewers of this channel that I basically built this channel in large part on making fun of TYT, and yes, that included making fun of Cenk, but also Ana as well. But never in my wildest dreams would I hear a story about Ana being assaulted by a homeless person in her own neighborhood and think to myself, you know what? This is a good point in time for me to attack her and make fun of her for that. And I'm somebody who, although I am now her literal best friend in the whole wide world, was not considered a friend at all whatsoever. She had blocked me on twitter.com, and you could say I would be perceived as an enemy. That being said, Ana's actual friends, people who actually formerly worked at TYT, have no qualms about mocking her and talking about how she may have been titillated by being victimized by a criminal. Remember this clip from Emma Vigeland?
No one considers this until a crime happens to them. Like no one walks through their everyday where crime doesn't happen to them and say, oh, everything's so safe. Crime isn't happening to me. They ever only think about this when it does. Like the absence of crime is not something people think of. That's the default.
But it's you're right, Bender, but it's also people like get titillated by it, to be honest with you, that haven't experienced it before.
And this is what people are missing about this whole Ana Kasparian situation, and it's not really fleshed out in this particular article or in a lot of the coverage that I see, because a lot of people, especially those on the left, are saying, oh, Ana didn't realize that some people were mean to her on the left, and now all of a sudden she's a right-winger, which again is wrong from top to bottom. She is not a right-winger right now. Spoiler alert. Shocking to those of you out there in the audience, but she has not taken the red pill or whatever dumbass analogy you want to actually use. What Ana has realized is that she was in a cult, and the reason she realized that she was in a cult is because she strayed from it, and immediately people on her own side decided that it was appropriate to excommunicate her from said cult and then start savagely attacking her.
You know, so I think it's also like the prospect of it having to people, there's this, I don't know. It's hard for me. It's almost titillating is the only word I can think of, honestly.
Again, that was somebody who was a former friend of Ana Kasparian, a former colleague that worked with her, that used TYT as a springboard in order to go on the Majority Report, and she turned around and decided that in order to protect the reputation of homeless people as a category, it was appropriate to describe Ana as being titillated by a sexual assault against her. This is the cult-like behavior. It is extremely personal, extremely nasty, and Ana felt like she was in that tribe, that group. And when she sees that they're willing to sink to any depths in order to burn people that they consider friends that stray too far, that's not something she wanted to be associated with. And by the way, this has real impacts in the coverage of stories at TYT. If you'll notice, whenever there's a crazy Karen story that more often than not turns out to be a hoax, that is not being covered on the TYT flagship show anymore. That is something that Ana decided not to do because she doesn't want to target random everyday people.
I think one of the best things about LA is how diverse it is, right? I would
Totally
never
agree.
want to change that. But when you start implementing this mindset of, well, this group has been historically bad, and even though the people in this group weren't even around when all the bad things were happening, it's
Even
okay.
though their
Like, we need to-
ancestors were in another country at the
Right,
time.
exactly. We
Yeah,
we
who-
should demonize all of them because they're all the same, and they all like the whole Karen thing. And like I remember doing those Karen segments on TYT, and as we were doing them, it just felt gross, but I wasn't quite understanding why I felt what I was feeling. I wasn't confident enough in speaking out and saying like, these are like private citizens. And yeah, there's video of them behaving poorly, but they're still private citizens. And I don't know like what we're accomplishing by ruining their lives, right?
Yeah.
But we were doing those segments, and finally I just kind of talked to my, the founder of TYT, my co-host Cenk Uygur, and I was just like, I don't like these segments. I think it's wrong to like target regular people. People make mistakes, and we don't even have the full context of these stories. We don't know what happened before the video started rolling. We don't know a lot, and we're just like demonizing these people. So we stopped covering those stories, and then finally I felt comfortable enough to like do this lengthy segment about the whole Karen thing.
But in addition to that, Ana actually has issued retractions, specifically with the Amy Cooper story, the so-called Central Park Karen, after discovering that Christian Cooper, the man who was supposedly the victim of evil white racism, actually started the altercation and was implying, again according to his own Facebook post, that he was going to steal her dog if she didn't obey him and leash the dog. And again, I said this from the jump. If you're a man of any race and you want to engage in a social experiment, go to a public park, find a dog mom, again, of any race, have dog treats in your pocket, and imply that if that dog mom doesn't obey you, you're going to steal the dog, and see how fast the police get called on you, again, absent of race. And Ana realized that, she made that retraction, and she made a change going forward on her channel on how she was going to cover stories. So that is actual change proven out. You have linear reasoning, and that's what I appreciate about Ana, because it's not just, I want to talk to people vaguely. It's, you know what? I did some wrong things. I'm going to apologize, but more importantly, going forward, I'm going to try to improve my process so it doesn't happen again. Now look, Ana talks about how she had the whole birthing person controversial tweet. I'm going to link the whole Substack article so you can read over that again, but honestly, I'm not all that interested in that. But if you guys will remember, on the Leftist Mafia show, they had Olay screaming about Ana's race for some reason because she was mad at Ana Kasparian about them arguing with her about abolishing prisons, which is a ridiculously stupid position for Olay to hold. But Ana also talks about how they're putting out these monetized videos attacking her. And honestly, this is like the one part where I think that Ana needs to drop that portion of her criticism, because the fact of the matter is, we are people who create content on the internet.com. And guess what? I don't do this as a social experiment. Ana doesn't do this as a social experiment. We do this for work. So the videos are going to be monetized. They are going to make money. That is the nature of the game. If Ana started attacking them back, then guess what? Those videos would be monetized. Although I do want to point out that that monetization goes to the Young Turks in her case. And in some of these other cases, when they're actually employed at a place, it goes to the company rather than to the individual pockets. So for me, this particular criticism, I'm not all that interested in, but you could take it for what you will. Now, Ana goes on to say that she is less certain and more curious than she was 4 years ago, which is a quote from her Substack article, not from one of those romance novels. Let me just be clear about that. And she adds that I've made humiliating mistakes while covering political news because I was previously unwilling to consider or understand the perspective of Americans who vote differently from me. What to expect from Unaligned? I'm hungry for dialogue, a space for in-depth analysis and a judgment-free zone. That is what I plan to do here. Every week, I will provide subscribers with 2 to 3 written pieces that dig deeper into big stories of the week with the intention of finding truth rather than promoting a political side. Video posts sharing details on breaking news and political events, and a weekly podcast beginning in November that will feature long-form discussions and debates with guests from all walks of life. Engagement with me in the comments for paid subscribers. Join me and be part of the dialogue. So yeah, Ana has announced that she is doing a new podcast, which actually starts in November. Coincidentally and unrelated, that's actually when my lease expires in this particular apartment right here. And I know a lot of people are going to go crazy, but I'm just going to make this clear. I'm not the co-host. I'm just throwing that out there to create more controversy on the internet.com. And I hope her podcast goes well. She goes on to say what the point of this project is, so let me read that to you and then we'll wrap up this whole tale. The point of this new project is the pursuit of intellectual freedom and open-mindedness. I want to nurture curiosity without fear of offending the sensibilities of loyal partisans. I reject arguments about the evils of platforming people who are considered too naughty to converse with, and I want to facilitate dialogue. I don't know what my political identity or label is, and I'm not even sure I want to be pigeonholed. This is my effort in pursuing extreme honesty and humility in the quest for common ground and truth without the constraints of tribal identity. Look, overall, I actually think it's not all that difficult to define Ana Kasparian politically. She has clearly and obviously moderated her position or become more conservative, however you want to look at it, on certain issues like immigration, criminal justice reform, and other things in that category. She wants to move away from identity politics. She doesn't want to cover stories where you're just painting a random incident like one of these Karen stories as indicative of the overall country, and she realizes that many of people on her side are bad actors that she doesn't want to be associated with. But economically, she is still in large part a left-wing progressive, although she has become more skeptical of specific tax increases based on promises that the money's going to go to the homeless services to get them off the streets, or the money's going to go to build new houses or whatever, because in reality, she's seen this play out multiple times, and she herself has admitted that she's voted for many of these ballot initiatives only to see the money get squandered. So she has become more skeptical of the promises of government, more skeptical of government power, but all in all, if you add things up, she is still pretty well aligned with Bernie Sanders circa 2016, in her opinion, if you were to ask her to define it at gunpoint.
He, again, is vague there, but, he's basically talking about certain culture war narratives or certain things that the Democratic Party leans into and kind of front loads in their campaigns and through the electoral process. Rather than having a hyper focused, principled message on materially improving the lives of everyone, which I think would be a valuable message that would obviously appeal to people, they get kind of caught up in these small edge case type things, and they do a lot of nagging, they do a lot of scolding. And that turns a lot of voters off.
But that being said, the effort that she's making to not demonize the other side, the effort that she's making to actually make amends for things that she said in haste and in anger when she was a part of that cult, should be commended, should be accepted. And honestly, considering the left is completely throwing her under the bus over this, maybe you just become reasonable and you say, all right, you know what, we have disagreements, but at least you're trying to have a conversation based in the same reality. So we can walk away with disagreements. Again, I disagree with Ana pretty much about as much as I did before, except on a couple of key issues where I think she's moved closer to my position. But overall, I definitely like her better based on the way that she's presenting herself and presenting these specific issues. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think about all this down in the comments below. As usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Ana Kasparian leaving the left, taking the red pill, whatever you want to call it, even though that's a little bit too extreme. Till next time.